okay, people, you're not happy about it, I'm not happy about it, but this terrible day has come, right? It's been waiting, and it's finally dawned. We've got to do World 5 of Braid. Of course, I'm joking. World 5 isn't that bad. It's just not as good as World 4 and 6, which have these amazing mechanics that are never to be seen elsewhere in the world of gaming, except I guess in Superhot and a few other places. World 5, by contrast, does the kind of classic like cooperate with yourself in the past mechanic where you've got to record your actions and then they play back, which has shown up in all too many puzzle games. In fairness, there's probably fewer puzzle games but back in 2008. But anyways, it's World 5, and it's such a transition world. It's just the others are kind of establishing things. You remember when we completed World 4, I think that both of these entrances lit up, so it's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure of which one you're going to go into. And yeah, so 5 is less essential, but it's also interesting because it illustrates, by virtue of its very blandness, it illustrates all the formal constraints and structures and the kind of artistic rules that Braid has created for itself, you know, that all of these different worlds play by, that organize the whole game. So like that that moment just of the two worlds opening up, right? It's kind of it's almost like a joke, because it's like Braid is a pretty linear game. I mean, yeah, you can do the puzzles in the different orders, but the worlds pretty much happen in order, and then you get this one choice, like do you walk into World 5 or World 6 next? And yet that is a key moment with the theme of World 5 and World 6, because World 5 is all about decision, or the story theme of it. The game mechanic is like cooperate with yourself by recording your actions, which is kind of different from making a bunch of fateful decisions. But the story theme is all about decisions and the kind of forks in the road that we come to in life, and then we imagine what would things be like if I had done things differently. It's about possibility, which is why I think it is called, oh no, it's called Time and Decision. My version of this world in Braid More Now Than Ever, I think, is called Time and Possibility. So anyways, that is kind of the opening theme of World 5, and we are going to get right into it. As usual, we'll talk about the art, the writing, the game mechanics, the level design. This is the whole thing. And as I just mentioned, my mod Braid More Now Than Ever, you can you've probably noticed by now that I'm uploading those episodes interspersed with these, so hop over there and have some fun if you want, or download the mod yourself from moddb.com. If I have time, I might even get to recording highlights about other mods, which have some really great stuff in it. So here we are, Time and Decision, and once again, just like Braid presenting us with the two different worlds that we could choose to go into, now we've got two different books. This is way less text than in the rest of the game, where you have book after book, just these short paragraphs. So we'll read them right now. She never understood the impulses that drove him, never quite felt the intensity that, over time, chiseled lines into his face. She was never quite close enough to him, but he held her as though she were, whispered into her ear words that only a soulmate should receive. Over the remnants of dinner, they both knew the time had come. He would have said, "I have to go find the princess," but he didn't need to. Giving a final kiss, hoisting a travel bag to his shoulder, he walked out the door. Through all the nights that followed, she still loved him as though he had stayed, to comfort her and protect her. Princess be damned. So, this is interesting because this world. I mean, so first of all, we see some connections to the other stories, right? So here, he's like, he's with her, but she's not really the one, right? He knows that the princess, some better life is out there, some magic life of perfect fulfillment or something, or enlightenment, you know, so he's leaving her in order to try and seek out that you know, that purpose. And another thing, so just like in the previous worlds, this is yet another different narrative of the princess story. here we have, so he's living with someone else who is implied to be not the princess, or at least Tim doesn't think that she's the princess or something like that. And he's leaving, giving a final kiss, hoisting a travel bag to his shoulder, walking out the door in order to seek out the princess. But hold your horses, people, because look back up here in World 3. He left the princess behind all those years ago. He had kissed her on the neck, picked up his travel bag, and walked out the door, right? So this is the exact same thing, except here he's saying he left the princess. He regrets this to a degree. Now he's journeying to find her again to show he knows how sad it was, but also tell her how it was good. So in this world, he's like, whoa, like maybe that was the princess that I was living with earlier, and now, you know, and I just didn't realize it at the time or something, or it's a totally different story. It's like a reverse story. Indeed, like the ending of Braid, you know, maybe this story is like he's leaving her in one direction to find the princess and then coming back to discover her in another direction of time or something like that. And of course we have more connections like that. Where else is right at the end of this one? This is less of a concrete, it's not like kiss, travel bag, door, is like very concrete, kind of, Braid wants you to notice that. Here we just have the same phrase. Immediately Tim walked out his door, and the next morning, toward whatever the new day had held, he felt something like optimism. Couldn't he find her by wandering place to place? So now he's like setting out from the door to find the princess anew, but he never knew her before, you know, and versus in World 3, he's trying to get back to her. In World 5, he's leaving. So, anyways, that's just to re-emphasize the point that all of these have a different kind of Italo-Calvino style. They're different perspectives on the same themes. They each tell kind of an incompatible story, but you know, they're all part of the same kind of emotional dialogue, even if the narrative is muddled in a sort of like direct lore sense. So the other thing is that these two books, speaking of like incompatible, like different Italo-Calvino perspectives on things, these two books, it can be read as linear, like, oh, he was with this, you know, wife of his for many years, but they kind of knew they were drifting apart or something, and then finally his urge to like go and seek enlightenment and, you know, rescue the princess became too strong, and so he left her. So that's like a linear interpretation. But this world is all about decision, and it's all about imagining the different paths that life might take us down. And so you can also read these two books, of course, as two different scenarios. Here, Tim decides to stay with her, and, you know, even though she's not the one, holding her as though she were, whispering into her ear words that only a soulmate should receive. And notice it's one paragraph because they're together. Versus here, we have two paragraphs. The first paragraph, Tim is like leaving her, he's going off to do his thing, and then his wife, who is leaving behind, she's doing her thing. She's there thinking, why did he leave? You know, if only he had stayed, what would that be like? You know, like imagining this other world that plays out in the first book. So it's, you know, it's about decisions, it's about pathways and things. But let's get right into the game. Oh, and by the way, there have been some great comments on this video. One thing that someone mentioned is that the painterly art style of Braid, with all this motion, illustrated nowhere better than here in the clouds, is important from a game design perspective, because it gives you, even when I'm like standing still, Tim is just sitting there, everything is in subtle motion. Tim is breathing in and out, the clouds are drifting, and of course the music is going like constantly wall-to-wall music, which is kind of unusual. And that is helpful because it gives you an intuitive sense and connection to how much time is passing, that you see all this motion. Kind of connects you to the theme of time in a kind of abstract way. There's Tim doing some little idle animations there. But it also, of course, helps you very concretely. When you rewind, you see everything going back. When you freeze, you see how everything stops and the music stops and all the animations are frozen. And of course, if you rewind at higher speed, then you get to see everything moving at a multiple of its normal pace. So this is all interesting game design stuff. I'm sure that when Braid Anniversary Edition comes out with Jonathan Blow's commentary, it's going to have like tons and tons of little details that I could have never noticed about why they made things a certain way in order to guide the player's experience. Personally, I am like less of a game design person than I just like love all the object level themes of Braid. Like I played this when I was in college and was like majoring in physics, and I was like, yeah, like trying to understand the universe by understanding the fundamental laws, like that's my jam. Obviously the eventual plot of Braid, it's like, no, this is bad, but maybe that was lost on me, like the college kid who thinks that Fight Club is a super cool movie that's pro-masculine or something. So anyways, so there's probably a ton of game design insights, and I in this am more focused on like the story and the themes and understanding the characters, and I like the multi-layeredness. There's this whole world of like thinky puzzle games, like Sokoban games that have like beautiful design, but they don't speak to me as much as games like Braid and The Witness, because I like when, as I've said so many times, when all of the art and story and gameplay and level design and everything comes together to like support a cohesive experience with like, you know, powerful, like interesting real world themes. But with that said, let's go jump on some Goombas. So again, and now this, so many interesting things in this game, so many interesting things. So you might think after the previous pit level, you know, that we'd have a transition from World 4 to World 5. That is, you know, 5 comes after 4. But actually, this is the sort of verdant greenery of World 3 transitioning to World 5 here. So again, kind of pointing at the idea that there's not a linear sequence of worlds. They're all kind of different thought experiments, or like this is a different branching off point, right? Because this world, it's going to use some of the same mechanics as appear in World 3. The shiny green keys and Goombas and things make an appearance here. But the World 4 mechanics, unlike in my mod more now than ever, where we have simultaneously enabled time powers and it's awesome, the World 4 mechanics don't show up in this world. So it's a little bit of the art is cluing you into the game design here. And we can try and get this puzzle, bounce on this Goomba, we get this little puzzle piece. We notice that there's 2 lines and it's glowing purple, like that's probably something cool. But of course we're stuck down here. But if we rewind, wow, look at that, 2 Tims, and that's what this game is all about. So we can just let our doppelganger here go down and get the puzzle. Notice he didn't kill the Goomba, he actually killed the shadow Goomba, the Goomba's shadow. And he'll hang out there, get the puzzle for us, and we can continue onwards. So we'll talk about the art style a bit, as we traditionally do in these videos. We can see in the background we've got trees, we've got leaves falling. It's fall. You remember this is my like theory that it's all the seasons going in reverse, right? So we just got out of winter in World 4. My theory is going to hit a bit of a roadblock in World 6 because there's four seasons. So then once you get to the 5th game world, then you run out of seasons. But anyways, it's fall, and the foreground is like some of the weirdest stuff of any of these worlds, right? So previously we had like green hills, and then we had some kind of more somber forests, and then we had this kind of weird ancient ruins, like very video gamey, like kind of stock environment, but with all these nostalgic elements of like the university and retro gaming, like the Donkey Kong level and the childhood blocks and all that. So it's kind of this world of memory, because of course World 4 also was themed big on memory. But now it's like there's all this wooden stuff. It's like furniture, like giant furniture. So it's sort of like an indoors space, even though in the background there's trees and stuff. This is like a pile of books, you know, like all mishmash, not nicely stacked up. There's drawers, there's so many drawers. There's like carpets and pillows and stuff, if you look up here. and you know, it's just crazy, and it's all sinking into this muck. It's like domestic, but it's also like nautical. There's piers and ropes. Everything is like there's this kind of toxic gook down there, and it seems like everything's slowly sinking in there, and the muck is like, you know, seeping into the throw rugs and everything. So totally bizarre world. What I think this means, but it's so weird that I don't feel that confident, is I think this, so it's, first of all, it's the most kind of depressing world yet, and it'll get worse in World 6. So we start out with the happy optimism of World 2, then the sort of, well, I mean, I'll talk about the progressions and the cross connections between the worlds later on, but, you know, even the nostalgia world of the previous, it was weird, but it wasn't like literally trash and decay and stuff, versus here, like everything's falling apart. There's these like drips of goo, particle effects that are seeping down the furniture. Yeah, it's a little wild. And I think this is symbolic of the domestic relationship, right? The unraveling of the relationship. People on the internet say Braid is about the atom bomb. They also say, oh, Braid is about a breakup, right? Like, oh, Jonathan Blow, he must have had a really bad breakup and he made this game about the princess and stuff. You know, I mean, I'm sure everyone draws on their history of like relationships and stuff when they make stories about relationships, but most of Braid is like so not about, it's like all kind of in Tim's head, and the princess is this weird metaphor for like, you know, enlightenment and like a perfect life and stuff. But World 5 is the most literally about relationships, and this, all of this crazy decaying furniture is like the metaphor of the house in which the arguments are happening, or, you know, in which all the decisions are being negotiated, and, you know, things are falling apart. I'm sure there's like so much art and movies and stuff that uses the metaphors of like houses falling apart as a metaphor of, you know, or like things being disordered, as a metaphor for the breaking down of the characters' relationships. Notice also, for the first time, I think this is the first time that the song Undercurrent comes up. We're listening to that same song that's going to play in the ending of the game. So kind of a high intensity, like chase music, like kind of drama type song, rather than the more optimistic music of the previous world. So I think that's all I've got about this crazy art. If any of you guys have further perspectives, I'd love to hear about it. And as usual, there's a progression of like the levels are becoming more contrived than ever. Like there's nothing holding this in the air, not even in the background. There's just like random platforms and stuff. In World 6 that'll go even further, but you remember back in the day, everything was like these nice hills, and then like, you know, when there were platforms in midair, there would be like little columns or rocks and stuff like in the background layer, telling us that, oh, it's actually part of a hill or something, or part of a little cave. But that's all long gone now. We're just in pure puzzle level architecture. So speaking of puzzles, here we got this lever. Not enough time to get there, so just let Shadow Tim do it. That's how a lot of this is going to play out. That's one version. So we see we got the purple lever, so Shadow Tim can handle it, and then you got to go up there manually to get the piece. Is this gonna be the same thing? Yeah, this is the same thing, same puzzle, except gotta bounce on a Goomba to do it. So a little bit of a timing element. And forces a bit of extra precision and awareness of like where exactly you start, right? If you start up here on the lever, then you know, the Goomba's already gone and you won't have a way to jump up here, so you gotta remember to rewind back to where the Goomba's around, or etc. Just adding a little bit of complication to make the player realize what's going on. Okay, now, ooh, something special happened. Okay, this level is called So Distant just because the lever is too far from the gate, so it's distant. It's too distant. This level, check out the title. No title. Just a picture. Sorry, these levels load faster after you've been to them once. a picture of a guy holding a key over spikes, right? This level doesn't have a title because this is an important gameplay moment. Now, for a game that is so interested in game design, it doesn't. Some games, including The Witness, and you know, they'll do this thing where you'll do something in the game, and that's supposed to mesh with the story, or you know, the mechanics are used to advance the story in a fun way, or something like that. But Braid, for all that I love talking about how all the elements come together, actually has this very strong division between the puzzles and the which are like happening in this simulation of time working differently and all this kind of sci-fi stuff, and the stories, which are more about, you know, they're about Tim and the princess, and they told us totally, like, we haven't seen the princess in any of these levels, we've just read about her in the books, and they also you know, are more real worlds relevant, talking about memory and decisions and relationships and things. But there are some moments in Braid that have a particular poignancy, like you know, like the first time that you fall into the spikes and die and realize that you've got to rewind. So he could have just like wiped out and, you know, or done the Mario like jump up, like, ooh, ouch, that hurt. But you have this like really harsh painting, right? So he's falling, he's got this gasp, then he's got this yikes face when he hits the spikes, and then kind of like curling up and then like fading into unconsciousness as he's falling off the screen. So it's like sort of this incongruous thing, at least with the happy theming of the earlier worlds, that you know, that he's it's like he's really dying to those spikes, and that they wanted to emphasize that moment rather than glossing over it like a traditional video game. Similarly, when you jump on the Goombas, the Goombas shed a tear, and that kind of emphasizes, instead of just a Mario platformer thing, it sort of emphasizes the ruthlessness of Tim, right? So we have this, it's almost kind of like a joke of like Tim gets the boost from stomping on the Goomba, and he starts like grinning. He's got this like Super Mario grin. He's cheerful, and then just as Tim has been propelled upward and given all of his downward momentum to the Goomba, the same in like emotional space, this Goomba is like you know, he's dismayed and crying out and all that. So you know, I always interpreted that as trying to bring a tinge of kind of realism and sort of thoughtfulness and more somberness or pessimism to the usual kind of Mario platformer stuff, and as a bit of a character commentary on Tim and how he's willing to just, he's like ruthless in his pursuit of truth, right? He's willing to stomp on all these Goombas and bring down chandeliers on monsters who didn't actually do anything wrong in order to get what he needs. So anyways, and this puzzle is a central one of these moments, because what you got to do here, you have this key. Notice if you come down here, you can't really get out. Like there's there's a rabbit that'll get you on this side. I don't even think is there a ladder? I think, yeah, like once you hop down here, you're just like screwed. There's no way back to the rest of the level because this gap is just too big to cross. You can't make it. If you try, you can almost make it, but it's too late for him. So the trick here, which takes a lot of time to figure out, is you actually use the fact that the key has some width, and you pass yourself the key, but condemn the other Tim to death, right? Which is, now in all of these puzzles, you're kind of leaving the other Tim, like in that puzzle called The Pit, you're leaving Shadow Tim, he gets the puzzle piece for you, then he's just stuck in the bottom of the pit for the rest of his life, while, you know, real world Tim, colorful Tim, gets to traverse through all the rest of the levels and, you know, pursue his you know, his adventures and find the princess, right? It's like The Prestige, if you guys have seen that Christopher Nolan movie, where there's a spoilers for a fun movie. There's a cloning device, and you know, this guy is getting famous doing these amazing magic tricks and shows, but each time he's split in two, he's condemning the other branch of himself to death. You know, so it's building fame for his for the sliver of worlds in which he like survives all the way through, but, you know, condemning all these other branches to death. So that again is kind of a testament to the ruthlessness of Tim. He's willing to sacrifice even, you know, a version of himself in order to keep going. And then we just have this kind of dumbass bunny puzzle, which has no greater significance as far as I'm aware. Alright, let's see. Just gotta distract that bunny. Fortunately, there's a purple bunny, so its shadow and its real-world colorful self move in the same way. Otherwise, that trick would not be doable. See, now I can't get back up again, so I gotta just rewind back. Anyways, oh, a nice thing about Braid is, which I realized when making the mod, is all these little details, like how the interior here has that kind of crisscrossy gold pattern to highlight that it's like a special area. You know, it's difficult to get to. It's not just anywhere. It could have been transparent, like the bottom space in between, you know, in between here and the bunny. But instead it has a texture indicating that it's like a special space. Same here too. You see this is like, it's like, yeah, you want to be here and have this nice interior gold texture. A little bit of game design. I wonder why this has such a prominent slant. Like, that's not necessary for any of the puzzles. Maybe it's just some visual flair. Maybe it's kind of like onwards and upwards is some kind of positive thing. And in order to contrast with the fact that once you hop down here, you're stuck. And then meanwhile, the version of Tim that's up top can just keep on hopping along. And Shadow Tim has to live down there, and there's these pillows dissolving into muck. Crossing the gap. So I'm not going to have as much to say about this one. It's just learning that you can use Shadow Tim to bounce some Goombas around, which involves Tim killing himself a lot, which is one reason why that blank Untitled level came earlier, because that was such a poignant moment versus like just bopping yourself. You know, bopping Goombas on the head is like less poignant. Let's see, yeah, and then we'll let one go down here. Then we get this epic, gigantic jump. Oh, let's see. Oh, okay, it's not epic enough, right? We gotta have this Goomba in midair. And this is tricky because, of course, if I'm like, oh, I screwed up the jump, you know, let me redo it. Well, if you redo it, there's no Shadow Tim down there, right? So this takes a little bit of platforming challenge. There we go. Speaking of platforming challenge, one interesting thing about this level is that it shows up. It has so many extra, how do I say, like extra features or extra layers to it. Not thematically, but see, I gotta switch that so the Goombas will end up in the pit below there rather than traveling all the way over here where they're very obnoxious to kill. But so if I'm not mistaken, there's definitely a star around here somewhere. And how does that work? Yeah, okay, I think I remember it. And it just involves bopping the Goomba. Now, I know I'm not going to do most of the stars, and in fact, some of the things that get you stars in regular Braid are... Oh, that's funny. Okay. I actually want to get this bounce. So, alright, so I was totally, oh, let's see, okay, alright. Sorry about this. I'm still remembering these puzzles as well, it's been a while. I've got to bounce this Goomba back towards where it came from, I think. Alright. Now we've got, oh. Now I've got a Goomba walking around in there, okay? And look at that, the cannon knows to spit another one out. Why would that be? Maybe it's because up here, there's a star. We'll let Shadow Tim have the honor. So what's interesting about this, you see there's a line over here, you could have done the same trick over there. This, you know, once you realize maybe that, oh, damn it, the Goomba's back over there again. So these three levels all have to do with bopping Goombas around. In order to get this puzzle, you got to drop down here and kill the guy just so that another Goomba comes out, so you can hop up there. In order to get this puzzle over here, I talked about how you had to do the super jump. In order to get this puzzle, there's two ways to do it, as I realized just recently. The first is to stand here and bop him yourself in order to bring him over. But the second is actually to The second is actually to rely on the fact that you can have the shadow and the real world lever in different places, and the shadow Goomba will just walk right across because it's got that purple linking the two. So here the shadow Goomba is walking across the shadow platform. Here the colorful Goomba is holding up the shadow Goomba. So they're each kind of holding each other. They only need half the normal amount of support. You know, and then with that you can come over here. So two different ways to solve this puzzle. And then the realizing that you can bop the Goombas across as an alternate way, you know, opens up the possibility of, like, wait a second, like, I can really just, you know, in order to solve this puzzle here, you only have to jump once. But you might realize that you can actually, you know, just sort of like bop them indefinitely. And, you know, and with that, just take these Goombas on the road. And, you know, that with that, you can play all kinds of little platformer games. So the stars, as usual, are rewarding you for thinking outside the box and realizing an extension of the mechanics. Furthermore, there's speedruns in this game. And these are sort of perhaps underappreciated, that these, you know, I mean, you think speedruns, it just involves playing the game fast, and obviously you have to learn some new stuff in order to do the speedruns. For instance, on this very first Leap of Faith level, there's not too much additional sophistication to doing the speedrun, just the usual sort of like timing and getting good at stuff. But on all of these other speedruns, solving the level within the challenge time actually requires, just like getting the stars, a whole, a new, like, there's a reason why there's these 5 levels and then the full game speedrun. Like, why not just the full game speedrun? It's because each of these middle 4, you have to learn specific tricks in order to make that, in order to complete them in the specified amount of time. So it's sort of like a whole extra puzzle of completing them in a more efficient way. Now, I don't remember the speedrun solutions, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying, but obviously you can imagine, say, like using the same Goomba first, killing it, getting the guy that pops out, and and getting the puzzle up here, then quickly rewinding, getting that same Goomba in order to use this puzzle, then rewinding again, letting him fall through the floor instead of travel over it this time, and thus, pulling kind of like all these times. I mean, how many Goombas? I've probably gone through like 12 Goombas by now, and if you can do it all with the one in a synchronized way, then that lets you get all the puzzle pieces, but there'll be some additional tricks to that. So I'll leave it as an exercise to the reader to look up, or better yet, play through yourself those speedruns and figure out those advanced Braid techniques. And just like in the case with the stars, some of the speedrun techniques were brought back by modders into puzzles that I anthologized into Alright, yet another tedious IMO, coordinate with yourself in the past type puzzle. So here, what do we got to do? We got to move this lever. We got, and if these are taking too long, then always remember you can use those highlights down there in the video description to skip around to what I consider the best moments. It's got one key. Oh, it's not even necessary for this one. Alright, we're going to take this key, use it in 2 ways. Yeah, this is a classic. Alright. Hop over here, but look, I'm hopping on top of this. So, I don't want to screw that up by undoing that key with Shadow Tim. I could do this, but now I'm totally stuck here. And it's me who's stuck here. Now I can't have Shadow Tim, or I could have him go through and do all that, I suppose. But it's just the shadow platform that's moving. So I've really got to be the one to do it. But then I've got to be able to get out and climb up the ladder and actually go claim my puzzle piece. So while I go and do that, I eventually need a Shadow Tim to come down here and unlock this door. But not, I gotta wait until after I use it as a platform. So we're gonna just go through here quickly. Get a sense of how long it takes, because I'm gonna have to go through here first with a little hop to signal to myself. Alright, got off in time. There we go. Now over here we have some more cooperate with yourself madness. This lever raises that, which raises me to the height that I need to pull that lever, which will raise this. So I think this is kind of a unique thing, because you have to record, make 2 recordings in sequence and build up to kind of a chain. This is another kind of thing that in the mods you'd have like 5 recordings in sequence, and it just maybe that accounts for more of my ill will towards this world than the actual puzzles in Braid itself. Alright, so we gotta hop down here. Then we gotta stop and give plenty of time for that lever to rise, which is gonna do shortly in the next recording, and then we're gonna pull that lever. Alright, so now Tim's on board. We can let him up here. It all seems so simple now. But you wouldn't believe the number of times as a new player. Oh, there's a problem. So we got to do it fast enough that the recording doesn't disappear because it doesn't last forever. Okay, got to do it fast. So I'm going to start from this ladder, say. We'll wait around a little bit and then press up. Wonderful. This is interesting. Here we get this Goomba. Look at that. He's just walking into a pit. Previously, there was a Goomba carrying a key into that pit, and we had to go down there and get the key out of there. But now he's just falling right into the pit as a mere tribute to the earlier level. Right? It's become meaningless. It's like functionless now. To have that moment, we can't even ever hope to hop on that Goomba because he falls in there so quickly. But you know, it's just kind of a reference to the different. Or can we hop on him? No. Ooh, can't get to him at all. So he's totally outside of our interaction. You know, we'll see this going on. Braid loves to reference the earlier levels, and in Braid more now than ever, we just add to that with more and more remixes. But that's also a reference to the kind of increasing weight of the formalism that you know, that these puzzle levels have. And in World 6, you see more and more parody of the pretend naturalism that the early levels had, and it's more drawing your attention to, like, no, this was like a carefully crafted level with these kind of arbitrary wild designs with the platforms floating in midair or something. You know, this world doesn't run on the rules of like gravity and structural support. It's enthralled to like the game design rules of what would most help the players. And so the repetition of the earlier elements often leaves certain parts unnecessary and gives new meaning to other parts. That's what that Goomba is telling us. Alright. So we've got the sleeping Goomba. Now this is a much tougher guy because we can't just smash and rewind and smash again. We've got to... we only have 2 of these. And once they're gone, they're gone. If we rewind, look at that, he gets the health back. So how could we ever get him down more than, you know, more than 2 notches? Well, it's easy. We'll use the shadows. Boom, 2 at once. He's down. Oh, I'm down too. I mean, come up here ready to exit, but look at that. Wouldn't you know it, it's a puzzle. This is another case of having to cooperate in order to not to run out the time limit on the recording. Oh, we also have to reuse that key. Alright. So we're gonna grab that key. one of us is going to leave from right around here, head up here, and pull that lever. The other is going to head this way and hopefully not get hit by a Goomba. That would ruin my plans. And then hope that Tim makes it there before the recording gets out. There we go. That could also be done in the reverse because it is a shadow linked puzzle piece. Alright, and finally here we exploit something interesting. So far we've just been thinking about, like, you know, Shadow Tim is performing the recordings of regular Tim, walking back and forth, just playing out everything exactly as it is. And so it seems like in this world we're screwed because we could record ourselves opening this, but since we don't get the key back, what's the point? It's worse than useless. The key doesn't split in two. Or I suppose it does, but by the time we rewound, we'd already lost it. Rather, the shadow key is also broken forever there, right? If I make a copy, you see that broken shadow key, and no rewinding can get it back. So it's like we can't touch that door, you know. But we can make use of a very special property, which is that even though if we try and play the game forward, you notice you can rewind at any point, and you can also, while continuing to hold shift, play the game forward. But eventually it stops at the most recent moment, just like when you rewind, it stops at the moment you landed stops at the moment you entered the level. When you play the game forward, it stops at the last moment that was rendered by the game, you know, under your control, because of course you can't just play forward the game without it knowing what your actions are going to be, right? And yet Shadow Tim can play forward a little bit beyond the last moments of, you know, that were simulated by the game. So I just froze that world. I can't play it forward any further. Nothing forward here has been rendered, but we obviously know from physics that even if there's no additional keyboard inputs, Tim is going to continue on his little parabolic trajectory there, and Shadow Tim can play that out as well. And so if we do that, just that brief recording of me making a little jump forward, but when I release shift, I won't hit the space bar, so only Shadow Tim will jump. We'll see that he not only jumps forward, but also, of course, completes the jump and lands down range. And look at that, the key has advanced ahead of where it has ever been in real life. In real life, it only ever got about that far. But you know, in the shadow world, the physics plays out a little bit more before Tim runs out of inputs and goes to that kind of depressive downward gaze. So just use that trick right here. Look at that. Boom. We don't even have to waste our second key. We can open an infinite number of doors using this, as long as they're all shadow link doors. We'll just take this fragile companion cube on the road with us to this beautiful castle. Actually a totally ramshackle castle collapsing into muck. Again, confirming the sort of like house all fallen apart a metaphor that's going through here. And if you played The Witness, no, I think this is totally different from the Buddhist stanza about a house being destroyed that shows up in that game. So you see that you got some beautiful stained glass windows up there in the corner. You have a princess, just like the stained glass window in the castle of Princess Peach, and in the Mario Mushroom Kingdom. But then in the second one, she's running away, indicating that maybe not all is as it seems. As many clever players have noted, the flags here are all these like wacky flags. Like, what is this, Finland or something? No, it's actually these are like naval code flags, and they, if you translate them, have these kind of like ominous meanings. Like, you know, it'll be like you know, your future direction is uncertain, and then later it'll translate to turn back now, danger ahead, or stop. I think they start positive. The first flag might just be plain green, which in naval code is like go, everything's great. but then the meanings progress to more and more ominous, trying to tell Tim like this isn't the right path. This kind of obsession that you have is not pointing you where you want to go. But just like Tim, we're going to go there anyways. And you'll notice this whole thing will be getting more and more uncertain, right? This dinosaur doesn't even know who he is or what's going on now. In the previous world, we had the world where we were running past him in World 4. Before that, he was saying that Princess Who, I've never met her. You know, only in the first world did we get, sorry, she's in another castle, an acknowledgement that she's real but must be somewhere else. And then in World 6, of course, we continue that continuum. But there's a little bit more to talk about in World 5 here with the art. We'll start by putting together this puzzle piece. So we've got an airplane here. The setting is in an airport. Here we have the arm of the princess. As usual, she's partially off screen. This is Tim. Different hair color, different look for Tim in all of the different paintings, which I think suggests that he's not supposed to be a specific character. He's kind of an abstract archetype or an everyman or something along those lines. So here's Tim just staring at the bottom of his empty soda with the little straw. He's got a little backpack around. You know, while the princess is off screen. But look at that. It's another Tim. This guy, same backpack, same tie, same hair. He's boarding the plane, you know, pursuing her. You can think of like all those romantic comedies and things where people make last-minute, life-changing decisions of whether to try and get the girl or not by, you know, running to meet each other in the airport. Airports, famous places where people make big life decisions. You fly from one city to another, start a whole new life. You know, and of course, we have the two Tims, like the two different life paths that he might follow. I also personally have this totally crackpot theory that this is possibly a reference to the movie Primer, which was a time travel movie that involved, that was like very detailed and thoughtful. I like it a lot, and came out a few years before Braid, so it is possible that it could be a reference. Also has that kind of ending scene in the airport where the one character is going back to their relatively normal life, and the other character is like taking the crazy technology developed in the movie and you know, about to like just like unleash it on the world, basically. So anyways, that's all I got for this scene. Beautiful paintings from Dave Hellman. We also have all of the we've got all these different worlds to talk about. The theme of decision and domesticity and domestic conflict is reflected in this choice of room, right? The kitchen. There's a lot of choices to be made, like what to cook, what to do, you know, what are we going to do this evening, honey? And, I mean, like, you know, for entertainment or something, like, you know, well, what do you want to do? Kind of negotiation happens. There's duplicates of everything. You notice this little refrigerator. You got two pieces of paper stuck to it. You got the faucet with the hot and cold water knobs. You got two little jars on top of this oven. Two little like pears or something stored up here. Duplicates of everything. Two lights up in the top pointing at different rooms, and two little lights here with the two chairs that the two people in a couple are going to sit there and eat their humble, you know, ordinary kitchen dinner when they're having a night in the house. This is in contrast, of course, to over here, where we just have the one big light at the top and not the two. Just one lamp on the desk and not the two lamps on the table here. You know, just one chair rather than the two chairs, because this is Tim's kind of workspace, versus this is his like relational, you know, relationship spaces here in this kitchen. Here in World 6, we'll get to this in our next episode, but you notice you got four of everything. You got four chairs, you got four lights in the chandelier up there, and then 4 more candles, or many more candles, down here below. That's because World 6 is going to be about society, right? These first 3 worlds were just about Tim and his own interior experience. You've got this nice lounge chair where he's kind of like relaxing. It's a world of forgiveness, time and forgiveness. You've got this dreaming world, a little bit of magic, time and mystery. You have time and places, is sort of like Tim at work, right? He's got the computer, he's got the exercise, and it's like optimistic. There's forward progress being made when you exercise. It's painful in the moment, but it's building over time. And same thing doing work. Like, nobody likes to do work, but you do it because it adds up over time in a way that just lounging and relaxing doesn't as much. So that contributes to that theme of forward motion. And here you've got everything duplicated to be talking about the decision points and the nature of living in a relationship. And then World 6 was all about society and Tim's kind of feeling of alienation from the world at large. And you got this awesome little bathroom down here which teaches you the controls of the game. So that's about it for World 5. Coming up, our most anticipated episodes, World 6, which mechanically is not as whiz-bang as the amazing World 4 simulation, but World 6 Hesitance just is has powerful story, powerful art. The symbolism is very strong in World 6. And then after that episode, of course, we're going to be talking about the end of the game. So I hope you tune in next week and the week after that for our finale episodes of Untangling Braid. Thanks so much.